I'm back! Okay. Just in time for the Cool Hand Luke impeachment gate. Because sometimes nothing is a cool hand. Okay, day one. Well, this is why the Nixon Republicans convinced him to resign. To avoid this spectacle of wonderfulness, an absolutely epic, incriminating, fascinating, informative takedown of the president on the part of the Democrats. In the first day, the Republican, quote, defense, unquote, as it were, is crumbling under the weight of its own poorly constructed card tower. Meanwhile, and at the same time, for people who really pay attention to these things, the Deutsche Bank story is exploding underneath, wherein the Saudis chopped up Khashoggi, sawed him up under the suggestion of MBS and Jared Kushner because he was about to reveal the relationship between Donald John Trump, the Saudis, 9/11, and the Giuliani cover-up of the 9/11 aftermath site by Russian mob-run construction companies to remove the evidence of the charges that felled the buildings on 9/11. But I digress. The impeachment. Let's get back to the hero of today's impeachment hearing. Let me get a little bit of this here. I'm so excited. House Manager Jason Crow of Madison, Wisconsin, former Army Ranger who served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan as platoon leader of the 82nd Airborne Division. House Manager Jason Crow started presenting the case against Donald Trump with a story of how he and his platoon had a high-tech radar device that alerted them through sophisticated equipment when enemy missiles were headed towards their base. Kind of like this feedback coming in, right? He said, this is not a theoretical. We had 40 seconds to get out of our tents and into the underground bunker before the missiles inevitably hit. Wow. Then he weaved this story into the lives of the young Ukrainian soldiers fighting on the front lines against Russia. And the commander of Ukrainian forces thanked Ambassador Taylor, who was visiting the front line, for the aid that had just been appropriated from the United States Congress to Ukraine so they could hold this particular bridge, especially where the Russians were lined up in a siege ready to enter Crimea and take over. This was the military aid, the $391 million in both money and weaponry, such as those radar detectors that give our soldiers 40 seconds to save their lives, that the president was withholding from the Ukrainians in order to get the young new Ukrainian President Zelensky to drum up a bogus investigation in order to embarrass Joe Biden, the possible opponent of Trump in the 2020 election. The POTUS wanted to take Biden out through Giuliani with all kinds of collateral damage, including the ouster of master corruption Ambassador Yovanovitch from Ukraine, and including those poor Ukrainian soldiers who waited weeks in vain for the United States cavalry to appear in the form of weaponry and money for weaponry that never came. And including now the 176 passengers of the commercial airliner Collateral damage shot down as the near war that President Trump tried to start with Iran as a diversion from this very impeachment by assassinating Iranian General Soleimani with an unprovoked, surprise, ill-advised missile strike. Got a peanut coming out there. Damn. Got to calm down. Ordered by the POTUS himself with a countdown and everything over the phone to end his very life. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It ended his life. Ha 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 ha, went Trump. I'm paraphrasing shifty-like. Yes. Oh. Life means very little to these people, these cult of Trumpism. Very little. There's already been so much collateral damage from this man's madness, it is heartbreaking. This is not a moment, as Klobuchar tried gamely to point out in the last Democratic debate. This is not a moment of, at long last, Senator McCarthy, have you no shame? No! This is a moment This is you are out of order. This trial is out of order. This whole courtroom is out of order. You can't handle the truth. And by the way, there is no Santa Claus. Moment. This is the moment when we teach the Trumpism cult. Because it is a cult that, in fact, there is no Santa Claus. Your Christmas presents just don't magically appear in a sleigh from Mexico that builds walls, it flies along the border, okay? What we actually have here in Trump is a Grinch that is stealing your Christmas methodically, one by one, reaching into everyone's family's houses, and how can I put this as delicately as possible so as not to offend anyone? The Trump Grinch hand reaches through the chimney into your family's house and grabs the pussies! Good night, America. Rest assured that the Democrats, and God bless Nancy Pelosi, we are all praying for you. Bless you, you marvelous woman. You are doing the duty of upholding the Constitution and indeed the dream of American democracy itself. What better way to celebrate Martin Luther King Day than to embrace the message of this impeachment trial, which is really, in Rusty Tiberius Shackelford's opinion, an necessary, legal, long overdue intervention. We are currently staging an intervention on the Trumpism cult of the Republican Party. Let us pray that it is successful and we rid America of Putin! I rest my case for the day. Oh, and before I go, please buy my book. There have been a number of books released along with the historic impeachment trial, including A Very Stable Genius. The Unmaking of the Presidency is another one. 1856, about how we were in a pre-Civil War mode, so look out! And now my new book by Rusty Tiberius Shackelford I will reveal tomorrow when it comes out, The Stench of Trump's Inevitable Taint. This is it. The Stench of Trump's Inevitable Taint by Rusty Tiberius Shackelford, which will be released tomorrow by Doubledown Press. I will go into that more in my next report. Y'all have a beautiful week and enjoy watching the festivities.